So I think the first question is, what is happening with AI investing in 2025 going into 2026? What's going on? Jared, why don't you kick us off?
Well, perhaps we should start with some intros first, make sure people know who we are.
I think people know who you are.
Probably everybody knows what Mercury is. Raise your hand if you're already a Mercury customer. Down. Has to be cool.
Yeah, the rest of them don't do startups. So.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have a startup.
Raise your hand if you have a startup and are not a Mercury customer.
Oh God, why did you have to ask that? Should I just do this intro?
Yeah, I mean...
All right, I'm the CEO of Mercury. I started Mercury in 2017. We're like 1,100 people. We raised earlier this year 3.5 billion valuation. I have also invested in 350 companies or so. Oh, I guess we could clap. But yeah, great. So hopefully I have an investor and a founder perspective.
And I'm not sure that everybody knows what Corgi is, even though you're like the sponsor of the event. Do you want to just tell everyone what Corgi is?
Yeah, Corgi is an AI financial infrastructure company. We also call ourselves AI Insurance. And basically what we do is the most regulated parts of the economy where a lot of money flows in or around, we try to become those type of companies. So most of what we do right now is insurance. We started in real estate, and we're about to have a pretty big expansion into insurance for startups and technology companies.
We should talk about that soon.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay.
Jared, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Jared. I'm one of the partners at Y Combinator. You folks probably know what Y Combinator is, so.
All right, well, I guess to start and kick it off, what is going on with seed stage AI investing? What is the market like? I think most people in this audience are probably pretty familiar with it, but the valuations seem very high. Seems like there's a lot of money flowing around. What is going on?
I guess Jared has a perspective. I've invested in about 25 companies this year. Almost all of them are AI companies. So I think firstly, there's almost no other type of company getting funding. Like some defense tech and a little bit of stablecoin type things got investing, and outside that, it's almost all AI. And what is happening? I think valuations are growing. The craziest stories I've heard are kind of like $40 to $50 million valuations for pre-launch kind of startups without like second-time founders or some other kind of impressive label. And obviously we've seen much crazier than that for like AI researchers and things like that. So I do think there's been a big acceleration even in the last 6 months when it comes to valuations for people who get kind of these seed deals done.
Is this the craziest investing cycle? Like right now, is this the craziest you've ever been? Immad and I have been doing startups for 20 years. Is this the frothiest it's ever been? Has it surpassed 2021?
I would say the thing about 2021 that was weird is it was such a broad thing. It was like an everything bubble. So, there was everything you could imagine, no matter how dumb the sector seemed, would get very high valuations. I think right now it's like very AI focused, so that is different. But the AI part is frothier than 2021. I think the counter argument you'd make is we've never seen, and even in 2021, there wasn't like companies going from 1 to 10 million in revenue in like 6 months. And there wasn't startups that were, $500 billion company, right? So we're in a very different world. So I don't know. Do you think it's a hype cycle, especially in these seed valuations?
I think it's great news for everyone in this room. Like, there's literally never been a better time in the history of humanity to be doing startups than right now. So that's awesome.
And when discussing the AI companies, I think we'll come back to the non-AI companies. They're very sad, I think, in the corner or something. But among AI companies, it seems like there's really two theses that people talk about. And one is kind of full stack labor replacement. Another is kind of vertical agent companies. what's your feeling on this? What's the difference? Where is this headed? Which one is more or less important, or are they both important? And where is there money to be made?
Sorry, what was the second one?
Vertical agent.
Okay, that's like helping like a coding agent or something like that?
Jared, do you want to?
Yeah, well, I'm excited to talk about this topic because most startups are not full stack startups. Most startups are software companies, but on stage, I happen to be joined by two people who are running full stack companies, which I've always been fascinated by. And well, raise your hand if you know what a full stack startup is. Okay, so it's still a pretty obscure term. Immad, I think you were saying that like the term is hard to define.
I mean, I guess how do you define it? Because Mercury is not a chartered bank. We partner with banks. So does that make us not full stack? Like, where is the boundary?
You're like 75% of the way to being full stack. You'll eventually own the bank.
It for sure makes him less full stack. That's for sure.
He's on his way to being full stack. He's almost there.
I think I've always liked the other. I think it's the feature versus product distinction. I feel like that's like a more powerful and more obvious distinction than full stack versus non-stack full stack. Well,
the reason that I would argue that Mercury is like pretty much a full stack company is that you compete with banks. Like if I was some founder and I was like, oh, the banks have like terrible software, the UI suck, they're like super outdated. Like my first thought might be, okay, let me go to I'll build a beautiful banking portal and I'll go to these banks and I'll sell them my like beautiful banking portal software and then they will have like websites that don't suck. But you didn't do that. You were like, fuck it, I'm just gonna like build a banking experience and I'm going to sell it directly to the bank's customers and compete directly with the banks. So that's why it's full stack.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
So if we kind of define the term, Jared, in your judgment, what is a full stack company?
I think it's best described by an analogy rather than trying to give a dictionary definition. And I think like the banking analogy is the perfect one, right? Which is like if you wanted to fix banking technology, most founders when they like see bad technology, their first inclination is to build a software company and then sell it to like banks or to insurance companies. We have tons of YC companies that are doing the non-full stack version of Corgi. They're like, oh, we're going to go sell some software to insurance companies. But like for both of you, you decided to take, I would argue, the path less traveled, which is to go like compete with the incumbents and do the whole thing that their business does.
I see. So to come back to the AI thing, an AI accountant, which is like selling accountancy software directly to startups, accounting services directly to startups would be a full stack version versus AI companies selling software to accountants.
Yeah. So I guess like if Uber was selling SaaS to taxi drivers, that would be a vertical SaaS company.
There you go.
Whereas Uber is a full stack company. So is this a meaningful definition? Is this actually enabled by AI in some meaningful way? Or has this always been kind of a way to think, has Airbnb like hotels, but full stack? Like, how do we kind of think about this in terms of AI versus not AI?
Yeah, Airbnb and Uber are definitely full stack companies. And Immad and I are old enough to remember that before Uber, there was a company that sold SaaS to taxi companies called Flywheel. Did you ever take Flywheel? It was horrible. Like it turned out that full stack was the correct business model in that area. But Immad, you're old enough to remember that in the 2010s, there were tons of companies that tried to do full stack service businesses like accountants, right? There was a whole bunch of companies that tried to do like full stack accounting and like full stack everything, and largely they didn't win in the 2010s, and actually the SaaS version won in most markets.
Yeah, so you think that will change with AI?
That's my hypothesis, is that like...
What's an example of a company that's been successful in a full stack AI services?
I don't think there are any that are wildly successful.
So you think this is like the next wave?
Yeah, like who here remembers Atrium? Yeah, so Atrium, which was a company started by Justin Kahn, tried to build a full stack law firm in the 2010s, and it didn't work because, well, you could argue a lot of reasons, but like one reason was like you just like couldn't automate very much of what lawyers did, but like now you can. And so the argument is like somebody should try to do Atrium again and just replace the lawyers with AI agents.
Well, where does Harvey fit in this mix?
Harvey is not full stack. Harvey is definitely selling a vertical AI agent to lawyers, and I think an interesting asymmetric way to compete with Harvey would be to instead build a full stack AI law firm. But I'm curious, Nico, since you are actually doing this in insurance, you're on the front lines of seeing what happens when you try to take a legacy industry with a lot of back office paperwork and replace it with AI. What's happened?
So in our case, licensing was very difficult. We had to buy $35 million of licensing to start before we could, and it took us about a year and a half. But after that was all done, it's been very pleasant. I mean, we're one of the faster growing B2B companies by revenue that there's been. But a lot of it is I guess a lot of the pain in our case was very front loaded just because of a very difficult regulatory regime.
You had the same thing, right? How long did it take you to launch Mercury, and what did you have to do to get live?
It took us a year and a half. I think one big benefit of doing something more full stack is, I feel like if you're more audacious, it kind of attracts things to you. Obviously attracts investors. If you have an audacious goal, we're going to build a new type of bank, that's just a lot more interesting than we're going to sell a dashboard to existing community banks or something. And then it also collects talent. And then lastly, when we launched, we were almost instantly successful. And I think that's partly because in 2019, there wasn't anything like what we were doing. And that people were more likely to talk about it because it was an exciting and new and audacious thing. So I think there is something about just the mimetic value of doing something bigger and have that impact you can have from it.
And how does this relate to labor replacement? There's a lot of, maybe not so much in this room, but in the public imagination, there's a lot of discussion about unemployment, people being out of work because of AI. Certainly a lot of anxiety, and it's a very politically charged topic. How does this type of startup maybe relate to that?
I mean, I have a hard time believing that AI is going to be successful and there won't be any job loss, right? That just seems hard to imagine. I think if you're optimistic about AI, you think it will, even if it provided everyone a 30% efficiency boost, that means you need 30% less labor. I'm optimistic humans will find other labor and other productive things to do. I just think the transition will actually be quite disruptive. So I'm I'm optimistic enough about labor that I'm a little pessimistic about what's going to happen with labor. Having said that, I think it'll take a long time. I think we're still relatively early in labor displacement. And I do think all the best solutions that I've seen and startups I've invested in are, even if they're going full stack, it's AI with humans acting in concert. There's very few interesting domains where AI can do an end-to-end solution. I think you can have AI do 90% of the work and humans have to kind of fill in the gap. There might be something I'm missing, but I do think most of the time it's not AI doing everything, it's AI with humans in the loop.
Well, and that's a particular characteristic of full stack companies compared to your traditional vertical SaaS thing, which is that you can have humans under the hood. The users don't even know that there's humans under the hood. They just see the end result. If you have some back office people doing new customer approvals and stuff, I as a user of Mercury have no idea that it's happening.
Yeah, and actually for some things like lawyers, people might like seeing a human in the loop. They might want to know a lawyer checked the work of their AI.
One common characteristic of full stack companies seems to be that the end customer actually doesn't care that much as an AI company. If I'm a customer of Mercury, I don't really care whether there's a bajillion people behind the scenes manually doing every transaction or whether there's no people at all.
Well, I mean, if there was people doing transactions, they would be slower. So you might care about it. I think at the end of the day, you want a problem solved, and the faster it's solved and at a higher accuracy, the better, right? So I think the best AI will do the best customer experience as well. And
if we pivot to culture, that's a very commonly requested thing that a lot of people in this room have been asking about. What are both of you seeing in terms of early stage companies' culture? What is culture like at AI startups in late 2025? What are you seeing that's maybe different than the past, similar compared to the past? Maybe Jared, why don't you start?
Okay, I can start. One of the things we've seen is a strong return to in-person culture, which obviously flipped the other way during COVID, but since 2023, almost all the new YC companies are building in-person companies. We've seen a very strong return to San Francisco. Almost all the new YC companies are like building in-person companies in San Francisco. And actually even a return to like this micro area of SF, the dog patch where we're in now. This was a backwater when Immad and I first moved to San Francisco, but now it's turned into the hotbed. OpenAI is like 1 block away from us. And I've also seen a really strong return to like intense work cultures and this idea that startups shouldn't be a 9-to-5 job and you shouldn't try to copy Google and have this like super laid back like work-life balance kind of thing that was very popular during the pandemic. We see a lot of companies doing 996 and other various like forms of like intense work culture. And Nico, you're famous for having instituted a very unique culture at Corgi. I don't know if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, we work 7 days a week. I think most people here are probably pretty familiar with some of the anecdotes, the mattresses in the office, the tattoos, the tents, like all that stuff.
Can I just push back a little bit? All of Corgi's employees work 7 days a week.
Everyone, yeah.
Like, and do you
All
feel like
70 of
you're
us.
productive the 7th day of the week?
Even better, the 7th. If there were 8, then it'd be.
I don't know. I think I'm a pretty good engineer, and I've tried doing 7 days a week, and I personally reach a productivity peak after about 6 days a week, and also I don't think I can work productively like smashing out code for 12 hours a day either. So I think like a really important point of our culture is people should just like use their brain and not try to copy other people's culture. So I think you should just think about like what works for you, what you really believe in, especially as founders. And one thing we did at Mercury when there was only 4 of us is we wrote down like these core kind of personality and cultural traits we really wanted to emulate and what like felt was the type of company we wanted to build. And yeah, those things don't like Uber was a very successful company, but it's like a very different culture from Mercury. Like we don't, we believe in collaboration and being helpful and not caring too much about competitors and being really focused on customers and other things. And obviously you can build a very, very great company without having that exact culture, and Uber did that and other people do. So I think I would always advise people, and I think I've been in this position where I'm like young and kind of new to startups, and I'm like, I hear people on the stage talking about a certain culture, and I'm like, I'm going to copy this because that seems like a cool way to do it, or that's how successful people are doing it. But I really think the best cultures are like ones that are true to people and make sense for you. So anyway, personally for me, I cannot work 7 days a week, and I'm quite suspicious of people that can work 7 days a week.
As the CEO of a over 1,000 person company, have you instituted any changes to culture kind of recently?
I think culture is actually like just a continuous growing thing. So we look at those. So we have about 6 like core attributes, and we look at them every year basically. Like last year we introduced seek wisdom. And this year we were like, that doesn't really do anything because we have other things that kind of cover it, and we are replacing it with like act relentlessly, which I think like partly speaks to kind of working harder and all that stuff. But I think it's more about kind of breaking through walls and doing whatever it takes to kind of solve a problem. So yeah, I think of culture as this like continuous evolution. And you actually want to change it to address like your current needs and your current problems and what's going wrong at the company to some extent. Like you're like, I'd love for people to not get blocked on things, so I need to like come up with ways to answer that.
And Jared, what have you seen?
Well, an interesting thing that I think is broadly true is that like like Immad said, like there is no one true culture, and I think there's a constant tendency to look at whatever the most like successful companies are of the day and look at their cultures, and then for everyone to copy them. That's what happened with Google in the like early 2000s. Everybody just like tried to copy Google's culture, to your point, and like I think it's actually really a good thing for the world, probably, that like you can have companies like Deal that power these like fully remote companies where people have great work-life balance and like work on the beach in Indonesia. And you can have companies like Corgi where like crazy people sleep on mattresses in the office and work 7 days a week. And like both of them actually seem to like lead to successful companies. So to your point, Immad, like founders need to choose a culture that like is true to them.
Yeah.
And to wrap things up, if we have a lot of really talented engineers in the audience that are kind of thinking about which companies to join. We have a lot of prospective founders thinking about which idea spaces to spend time and invest time into. How do we kind of think about building defensible companies? How do we think about building in areas where maybe OpenAI doesn't release a feature that is the company? What would be your advice to either people looking for very meaningful work or people looking to start something that could be big?
I think especially in this kind of culture we're in now with kind of AI and everything's AI, it can be very easy to have kind of a copycat mentality. Like look what other people are doing and do something that's like similar or like slightly beyond it. I would advise people to kind of step back and look at themselves and their experiences and go like, what are things they really struggle with in the past or in their lives, and come up with solutions that really solve those things, or maybe go talk to 200 companies and see, in related spaces where they're struggling. And I think if the most likely things did not work out are ones that are like kind of doing the nth version of like something that's already being done. I think it's very hard to beat someone that passionately built something that they really cared about with like something you're copying. So I see a lot of that, and I would say like that's the thing to not do, and like actually just find things that you're really passionate about that you're like willing to work 10 years of your life on and like try to solve those problems.
Before we wrap up, I want to return to an announcement that you alluded to earlier, which is that Corgi is going to launch a product imminently that is very relevant to the folks in this audience. Do you want to tell people about it, Nico?
Yes, we'll be launching a couple products in the near future. Our biggest product launch will be insurance for technology companies, aka startups. All of your insurance needs we'll be able to cover. Also, if you'd like to sell insurance to your customers and make a lot of money, because insurance is about twice as big an area of the economy compared to software, then we will also empower you to do that. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at any time at nico@corgi.insure. Yeah.
And do you want to do the second product too? It's a fun one.
I'm not supposed to talk about that one personally.
Okay, I was told I could talk about it. They're also going to launch an ETF, an exchange-traded fund that tracks an index of founder-led companies only. So imagine you took the whole stock market and you like cut out all the companies where the founders aren't in control anymore, and you left only the ones where the founders are still running the company. It's an index of that, which Vinod was up here earlier talking about how like almost all the real innovation comes from companies that are still founder-led. There's never really been a way to like bet on that hypothesis in a systematic way. So like I think this is like a fun, quirky, innovative idea, and I'm really curious to see what happens.
I'm curious why Nico can't talk about it.
There's a couple 3-letter agencies, but the SEC is the one that I need to be a little cautious of. All right, well, thank you so much for the time, and it was a pleasure to have both of you on the stage.